Hello, friends of the fog. BHVR just released its biggest developer update for this upcoming PTB that they have ever done, or since 6.1. Really depends on what side of the fence that you are currently on, because this is one of the most heavily debated things that I have seen in quite some time here. It looks like both sides are getting reflective buffs and nerfs, with some feeling that it's one side of the game, another feeling that they're giving a little bit to the other. And again, the scales are just going back and forth in a critical time of Dead by Daylight's history, as we're just coming off the highest amount of players to have ever played Dead by Daylight. With the amount of bugs that are currently in the game, I was actually a little surprised to see this being released, and sort of the size and impact of this coming update. Now, I did already see this on stream. We went through it, and I spoke for like an hour of it. I spoke nonstop of it, and we did a lot of theory crafting. And the nice part is that with some like-minded people, you create this nice back and forth between killer mains and survivor mains to come to an agreement about what's the core issues of it. We're going to try to do the same thing here. As again, I feel like voicing your opinions at this current state of time, it's healthy, but it depends on how we're going about it. There has to be some give and take on each side. So a couple things beforehand is that I immediately saw that people were like tagging like the BHVR employees, be like, this is terrible, and they're tagging the personals. We shouldn't be doing that. Use the appropriate forums and talk to your peers, etc. But like, honestly, like, don't tag the developers of it. Just keep it to like their first socials, or like on the post itself. Go to the forums and explain in a good manner so that people can actively have that type of discourse and discussion. Two other big points. We don't have the figures yet, so we don't actively know in concrete what this is 100% going to look like. It could be a minimal change. It could be a major change. It could also be no change, which is sort of the next point, is that this hasn't hit PTB. So like always, PTB is always the best case to see how effective these do feel. But this is a big one. In the last PTB, the community was quite quiet, except for a few different of the mains who outright said Clown was going to feel like a no-brain, throw your haste bottle only style of killer, and it got ignored because it did not get enough attention. And then likewise, Streetwise actually had the bugs inside of PTB, and on the description of it says exactly what it was going to do and what created that bug, and that sort of what they termed as a Streetwise glitch. So it's always good to explain your thoughts and sort of go into it with a certain mentality and see if you're correct or if you're incorrect. Again, things are subject to change, so we're going to go over it pretty sparingly, kind of give our thought process. We'll read through a bit. There is some really juicy stuff here for survivors. So survivors are going to be eating, and then some killers are also going to feel really, really good now. And I feel like the gap for killers will be so far after this. Like, if this actually, let's say all of this goes through, we are going to see one of the larger guys. I would even say that you could start adding another tier to the tier list, and pushing certain killers all the way to that sort of like that bottom area. As again, some are going to get affected by the changes. Some get the good parts, and then some don't even get the good parts because it just doesn't really matter. So with that being said, we are going to be starting with the first update here, the slugging reduction update. This is exactly like the anti-camp, but in the slug format. So if a survivor is left in the dying state for a total of 90 seconds, which is quite a long time to be sitting on the ground, they gain the ability to pick themselves up after fully recovering. I have the option to disable this in the custom games. And then there's going to be certain perks that work for it. We're looking at exponential, boon exponential. We're looking at pickup perks like tenacity, unbreakable, conviction, sort of like on the newer aspect. It shouldn't really get affected by it, but those three perks are pretty good examples of this. They're going to still work, but have just different effects. And there's going to be some changes on the perk side of things once we get to those patch notes. We also gradually increased the crawling speed for survivors who are left in the dying state, and added the ability for survivors to recover whilst crawling, and the recovery happens simultaneously with no buttons being pressed. Here's a little video that was released to kind of showcase what was happening here. So you see this little yellow bar that is gradually starting to grow, as well as your own personal recovery. So you can still kind of do both. If it's you got Unbreakable, you can still trigger it maybe a little bit quicker. But there's just certain scenarios that this is going to work just absolutely beautiful for survivors for. And the passive recovery, again, is so huge. Dwight picks himself up here with his little propeller head. Absolutely adorable. Again, so the pros and cons of this, and again, as much as we'd like to watch the videos, we're going to go back to this part. 90 seconds is a long time. 90 seconds is quite a bit of time. And I understand that. It's, as a survivor, you're sitting there, you're twiddling your thumbs for a minute and a half. Now, there are certain scenarios where even myself, I find a use for slugging. And I know, oh dear, there are certain killer powers that work better while slugging. Namely twins as well as Oni. Just off the top of my head, you could throw in other killer powers. Definitely that there's tons of case use scenarios. Plague and maybe a whole bunch of corrupted blood that she's spewing around everywhere because she's feeling sick. Personally, how I felt were two of my mains, Artist being one of them, gets affected. Cross map snipes, not really as viable anymore. I down a survivor across the map, and the effect of it is not as large as it used to be, with survivors now being able to be picked up. Again, just as my own case scenario, I'm one of those Artist mains who can chase one survivor with my M1 while simultaneously M2ing a survivor across the map and then downing them eventually. And again, just the effect of it is going to be minimized, as you can no longer do that. And, you know, killers definitely will have to change up their tactics. I understand that. Another one of my mains that we do play a lot is Trapper. We are chasing down the top 50 Trapper spot, and one of his strongest add-ons and one of his best add-ons is the Owning Stone, which now again has little effect, as before the strength of Owning Stone was that you're pulling survivors off to their objectives to come and grab you from the trap. Now they can continue to work through to work through it. Leave your friends to go and do themselves. Crawl over to a corner to nasty, Unbreakable. You pick yourself up and get right back into the action. So again, the pressure that is caused by this is just heavily impacted. At the end of the day, what this allows people to do effectively is to complete their objectives, which means that generators continue to be pushed, and there's less of a chance that you really need to help your teammates out as much from this. I'm also on the fence where I've been slugged for 4 minutes, and I get that. It stinks. It's no fun. What do? We end up doing just karaoke while we're getting slugged, and we start singing. But again, in all honesty, I just want to be back in the action. So I like some aspects of this. It's not like I totally hate the concept. I think it's just more so the execution, and there's the case-by-case scenarios. All killers will have to adapt at the end of the day. I just feel like some killers don't really need to make use out of this. And then there's some killers that they're very reliant. I'm not sure what the changes are going to be for someone like Twins, who is in a very buggy state, in comparison to some of the Oni changes that are coming. Again, you don't really want to go and use your power, hit a survivor immediately, and then have to waste your power and cancel it because you had an early down, because it eats up a whole big part of your bar. But they are getting, Oni's going to get like a little offset change with the blood orbs. Now, again, with these, there are also case by case scenarios where you are playing with your friends and they have flashbangs and they have flashlights. Maybe they have some great perks, last stand. They're coming in for that altruistic save, the plays that we all love to go for. As a killer, you have to be a little bit conscientious of these types of scenarios, and the best option at that point is to leave that person on the ground if you spot a survivor coming in for the save. And if that person is half decent, or you have enough people doing this, is that you can definitely get yourself off the ground. So again, I feel like there's a place for slugging. I'm not one of those people who agree with slugging at 5 and 4K, because you got to sweat out your win streak at 1,000, 2,000 wins and go for a 4K slug. I don't really see a point in those plays. Teach their own. Again, I hope that they tweak some of this. I'm curious to see the changes that they will make to this. Again, as an artist main, it's just something that I love doing, is just snipe survivors across the map while I'm in active chase. It's just a great sense of accomplishment and mastery for your killer. There's also some upcoming changes that are going to hurt a number of different killers for our tunneling reduction update, which is sort of the next one that we're going to be touching on. So we did anti-camp first. It was a great success. The anti-slug, again, a little bit of clarification. I can see with their mind what they're trying to do, and I do believe that there's some wiggle room there to maybe incorporate something like this. One of the suggestions I saw was like, crawling over to a hook, and picking yourself up off that hook. This one a little bit more different here. The tunneling reduction update. This is going to be affecting both sides. It's going to be affecting survivors, and it's going to be affecting killers. With survivors getting a huge boost in one area, killers will get some base kit perks. So when a survivor's hooked, their hook status is hidden from the killer. When they're unhooked, there is no notification, and their hook status isn't revealed immediately. What this means is that when you pull a survivor off of the hook, no longer on the UI, you see a change from a hook state to an injured state. The killers might have like a giant question mark right over above it because they don't really know what's going to be happening. So this is really going to stop those killers who are those back to hook gamers who are trying to interrupt their survivors healing at hook. And again, I've been on the opposite end where I'm just like, oh, like they're just immediately back to hook. There's not much what I can do. So this implementation is to block that. And again, it kind of creates a little bit of a problem because there are times in the killers that the survivors are stealthing out to this type of scenario. And unless you're bringing in some, I don't know, like spies from the shadow to see if there's any corner campers, you sometimes just have to rely on the information that's provided, which is your survivor getting removed from hook. It's your pressure in the game. Meanwhile, there's also some killers that are, you kind of know that there's going to be some pressure through tunneling. And again, we just bring up Trapper because we've played him so much that the game really doesn't start until one survivor is out of the game by at least 2 gens. And seeing as Trapper takes 3 gens to even set up their game, creates a little bit of a problem. So not only do they get a little bit of a lack of notification for the killer once they do get unhooked, they also gain haste, endurance, which is the borrowed time effect, and a new status effect called Elusive. And short and sweet, Elusive just feels like an off the record lucky break style of effect. Essentially, this is kind of like off the record coming off the hook with a little bit of haste, because Elusive is, I believe right here, a new status effect that silences grunts of pain, suppresses survivor's aura, bloods a pool, and scratch marks. So essentially, you're quite hard to see. While you're also getting a no collision with other survivors, so no potential body blocks from those teammates who cannot step out of the way. There's no killer instinct, and you get to see the killer's aura. All on itself, that is huge. There's positioning. You can tell your teammates in comms now what direction that the killer is coming through, and again, just creates for a lot of information for these survivors. Again, there's some killers who really this is not going to affect as much, and then there's some killers that they're going to see a little bit more. There's a lot to get through with this. There, from an artist perspective, very common artist move for us is that you send a bird back to hook just to check to see if a killer, if they're going to be in that vicinity healing up. So that was kind of like my first thing. I was like, okay, like I can't really do that anymore, but like it's something that is a 50-50. The different lobbies that you see, most survivors who are playing against that style of killer that has a high mobility, high mobility, also a ranged attack, will usually step away from the hook just in case of this. Whereas there is some survivors who bring in some like instant healing perks who just want to get their heals done as soon as possible, so they'll heal directly there. And then you'll see like some newer players who are healing directly into the hook. This kind of takes that away. These effects are lost when the affected survivors perform a conspicuous action. So You can't heal the other person coming off a hook. They just have to heal you. And then likewise, it is, you can't touch generators and totem chests. And all of these effects are disabled once all the generators are completed. There's also a unique effect to the killer hook state UI that indicates the last survivor they hooked. So, we didn't implement this at the first part because, we didn't want to promote killers to tunnel a certain survivor, but now with having this aspect where they have a little bit of off the record base kit is they're going to see who they could target next. All in all, tunneling, I feel has a place. It just kind of feels bad. And I feel like it's not necessarily the player's fault. To a certain degree, there's definitely players who tunnel out immediately at 5 generators. And I'm not here to tell you how to play. I myself will not tunnel at that point. I just feel like maybe 1 or 2 generators, everything's off the table. And I feel like that's probably the way that they should have gone, is that at a certain point with generator speed, if there's 2 gens remaining, it should be a little bit more freedom. If it's at 5 gens, for sure, throw this in. Because who really wants to get tunneled out of the game because your solo queue teammate unhooked you immediately, not getting any type of gen pressure. A lot of back and forth here. Again, there's a lot. This is just a strategy that a lot of people have incorporated since inception, is this tunneling. And tunneling is just, everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own version of tunneling. I've never seen a term thrown around where it makes me hard tunneling, soft tunneling, back-to-back tunneling. These are all just terms that you hear. My own interpretation of it is, if a survivor is coming off of hook, and me myself as a killer spots both the survivor, the rescuer, as well as the unhookee, and I choose to chase after the unhookee and immediately give them chase without allowing them even to reset. That's a big thing for me too, is I just want to heal and get me back into the action. Put me at a pallet and let's start the loop over again. You won your first chase. Let me see if I can win the second chase. So if you engage immediately before they can even reset, then I feel like that's my version of tunneling. But again, teach their own on their own version. It's a very, very highly debated topic of the community of what actually is a tunnel. So I'll let you all figure it out. Drop a comment to say what your version of tunneling is. I'm curious to see what people think it is, and kind of as a community can learn from this. On this note, there is a time and place for tunneling. And again, if you are a survivor that says, well, in my killer lobbies, I never have to tunnel and I'm an 8 hook Andy. There are some survivor lobbies where they throw themselves at you with second chance perks, decisive strike, and they're phenomenal loopers. I tip my hat to these survivors. They are competitive. They play competitive. They play ladder, and they're solid individuals. And if they continuously grab your attention, there should be a perfect case for tunneling. It shouldn't really have to hurt the killer because the survivors are actively trying to get your attention. There's also killers, again, the bottom tier killers that, unfortunately, they're kind of pressured into tunneling because how awful the design is. Again, shout out to my trapper mains out there, as we have pushed closer and closer to the top 50 bear trap catches on the leaderboards. My P100 journey, I've quickly figured out that I need somebody out of the game by at least 2 gens left, regardless of how many hook states, because it's going to take me 2 to 3 generators just to set up. And it's not like, your chases are lasting minutes on end. By the time you grab your traps, you set them up at good spots, maybe you get 5 or 6 traps. An efficient team at the start of the game should be able to pop 3 generators. Because as a trapper, again, you're trying to be undetectable as best as possible, trying to evade that survivor who's trying to follow you. So again, it's like there's point in case. Should there be a sort of a hard drop off where you can and you cannot? Some people say just get good and teach their own. Well, apparently we have to get good, but I feel like there's time and place where it's needed. There's certain killers that you should just understand that they are going to tunnel you. They have a weak power. You should probably kick their butt as a survivor. And if you're not, then again, maybe look inwards, don't look outwards. Grab yourself a mirror and have a debate with it and really take a look. Mind you, there's players like Nurse and Blight who they will actively tunnel at 5. So again, I understand where the discrepancy is coming from. Now, I could talk to you for hours on end about my thoughts of tunneling. This is the portion of it for survivors. And this is where kind of the kicker is that they gave buffs to killer for not tunneling. And there's certain killers that, again, they're so bad because of their power and the power creep of this game over many years and really getting minimal buffs over the years that their hand is forced. Otherwise, you just have to accept, you know what, I'm going to be playing as Ghostface and I'm going to get rolled here. I'm going to be playing as Miss Piggy, Amanda, and she just got a buff. But again, it's nothing groundbreaking. Likely we'll get rolled against a good squad. You could play perfectly as those killers and have 20-second chases, but efficiency will always beat you in the end, regardless if you have gen regression perks. But now what they're trying to promote is you don't tunnel, you get a little bit of a buff. So this is what this is. That unique hook identifier now will showcase if you can hook somebody else other than the unique hook, you get a benefit. These are the benefits. Bonus damage for the next generator kick. Think a worse version of Pop Goes the Weasel. A temporary haste status effect. Maybe like furtive chase hooking a survivor. Temporary reveal survivors that have less or equal hook states to the hook survivor. A base kit barbecue. That is huge. That is huge for a number of different killers with high mobility. We keep talking about this theoretical tier list where you have Nurse and Blight at top, and then followed up by Ghoul, Dark Lord, Twins for a sense, other than the anti-slugging thing that they're bringing in, so they'll probably go down a little bit. But those killers, the effects of a barbecue and chili on those killers' base kit without having to run the perk is massive in comparison to someone like Deathslinger. We always use Trapper, but Trapper to a sense. Trapper ain't gonna care about the survivor 3/4 of the way down the map. They just don't care. And the reason, because they don't have the mobility to make it. By the time that the barbecue and chili, they're like, sick, they're on that gen. I guess we lose that gen too. The base kick is kind of nice. The haste boost is kind of nice. It does give him a little bit of a boost, but again, the effects on one side versus the other side means that we're creating this massive gap in the middle between the top tier and the bottom tier. I mean, that middle tier is going to be all over the place, which means that we could probably create a different tier list, adding one more F tier and then shoving a whole bunch of those killers downwards, and then maybe finding a pocket in the middle that could use both of these. I'll tell you this right now, a Blight that can go across the map and use 2 seconds of barbecue and chili with a haste boost, with a gen kick boost, will always outperform a higher barbecue chili value on someone like again, like Trapper, or like Skull Merchant. What are you gonna? You can't teleport across the map. By the time it matters, that gen's gonna be done. So again, the effect is going to be larger on those killers. A hillbilly is going to be able to snipe from across the map. It's going to be great for them. So as a survivor, if you enjoy going against these top killers, be prepared to see even more of them. Why would a ghost face want to struggle a little bit more on these types of scenarios when you can just pick up Blight and have a better runoff of these core issues? I saw a couple people saying like, great, they're giving killers barbecue for free. Yeah, that's kind of silly for me too. I don't agree with it. I don't think that's a great change. It is going to be disabled once the end game. Kind of our thoughts there. It added new effects that desensitize tunneling. And this is the other big. This is the third part. The third catastrophic part about this update. Again, first being the base kit off the record that they give survivors. Second being the bit of barbecue and chili. The little bit of Pop Goes the Weasel. Again, it's a buff for killers for sure. It's a buff for the top tier. It's not a buff for the bottom tier. You'll see characters like Drudge eat a little bit more off of this because now they can teleport, which is good for them. So some killers are just going to be affected more than others, and I guess we're going to have to wait to see how that shakes up, but it's going to be a little scary. I know for artists, I'm like, sick, I got free barbecue and chili. Now I can free up a perk slot, which again is really good. I don't typically tunnel, so this is good for me. I don't really see the point that this is needed as much. And I think that what we could look to do instead is just offer blood points. It's not going to dissuade everybody. It's not going to go and, go for those win streaking sweaty killers that are going for those high numbers, which again, kudos to you. It's impressive. Like, you're kicking ass. And I realize that, but most of us, we kind of carry about our leveling. So if you remove sort of the blood point bonuses for hooking survivors in succession, and if at this point in time survivors are being eliminated, reduce the cost of it, incentivize these behaviors with a sort of a little small gift, then sort of changing these types of mechanics. Maybe if you go and you separate your hook states, you get an extra 1,000 blood points per hook. Maybe if you're an 8 hook and you can successfully separate all of them, award them a bonus of like 50,000 blood points. I'm not sure. It seems like behavior's being a little bit stingy on the blood point basis of it, since they did take away a lot of those types of bonuses. But that's sort of the direction I would lean into, because you're not going to be able to convince anyone anyways with this stuff. People will still tunnel. People will still slug. Now, again, we mentioned about the catastrophic third topic of this anti-tunnel. And again, this one's a bit of a doozy here. Added new effects that desensitize tunneling. If a survivor dies before 6 hook states, all remaining survivors gain a gen repair speed for the rest of the trial. And if the survivor that was last hook is sacrificed or killed, generators cannot be regressed or blocked. That means any survivor that dies before the 6, be it through Sadako's Condemned, which is her whole part of her kit, the survivors get a 2 versus 8 repair bonus, a catch-up mechanic. And I'm not too familiar with many games that are offering sort of a pat me on the back, you're losing, so let's help you win style of mechanic. Shout out to Mario Party for offering 10 coins. But this just seems like, hey, you know what? You're not really doing too well. Let us help you out. In a multiplayer environment where you're playing against players that could be worse than you or better than you, I'm unsure why we're creating a third category. There's winners, there's losers. Sometimes you tie. That's it. There's sometimes just the skill expression inside that round is much larger than we anticipated. And there's been many times where I go into a chase and I will get dusted. There's many times I do the dusting and it's a 5-gen chase. So there creates that MMR sort of issue rather than there being a catch-up mechanic. Now, another problem with the generators cannot be regressed or blocked means that perks like just Dead Man Switch, Deadlock gets a weird secondary nerf. Grim Embrace, they become a lot less viable in this type of meta. And I know a lot of people are going to be happy that Dead Man Switch is getting a little bit of a nerf here, especially when it comes down to 1 gen left and there's 3 survivors. It's pretty tough to do that. It's doable, but you just have to have sort of that right mindset, as well as just know, hey, my survivor that just got hooked, there's no DMS right now. Let me go touch the generator that has no progress and then come back to my generator with 99%. There is workarounds for it. Takes a little bit more time. You got to have good communication or you just have a lot of experience. But this part, again, I don't see the need for it. I don't understand why we're hurting perks when a lot of killer mains have been saying gen speeds are an issue. We're having trouble with gen speed, even with the pain res and pop, just because the game has gotten a lot faster. It's a separate topic for a different day. We've got 70-second hook timers, fast heals. We've got an anti-camp. We've now got anti-slug and anti-tunnel. I mean, we're taking so much away, so many possibilities without actually addressing the other side. If you affect one side, you should be affecting the other side. If you nerf one side, buff some of the other stuff, make chase perks a little bit better so you can catch up here. This part I think is just hot garbage. I'm sorry. 2 versus 8 is a great game on it. I absolutely love it. On stream, I build content for 2 weeks to play killer and different challenges, etc. And I end up just kicking it with the community. We just laugh and and play 2 versus 8. It's a fun game mode, but let 2v8 be its star and let 1v4 be its star. I don't agree with bringing in certain types of mechanics. So they go on about, it's no secret that tunneling can be seen as an efficient way to play for killers, so we decided to bring it out back and shoot it. If it's efficient, then we should probably looking to aid it in a different method to complete your goals other than just stealing away sort of the last viable technique. I would probably maybe look to revert some of like the sloppy butcher changes in the aspect of this, because it was like a trade-off back then, is that if you wanted to tunnel, then there was these perks were to deal with tunneling. Another way to get by tunneling so you didn't have to was a hit and run mentality. So slap the survivor, they have to heal. Now you're wasting times off of generators to go for heals, and it created a different type of loop. But survivors complained and said that sloppy butcher was too long and there was too many perks like this, for sure. So they removed that and put it to a time-based thing. So we lost that aspect. He speeded up heals. There's no flexibility at this point in time. What do we run? We're definitely going to see after this PTB shakes out. There's the anti-tunnel. Now going into the elusive status effect, we covered it. Tomes get a nice little boost here. There's new tomes coming out. I like this. Perfect. Like this is good stuff. Builds in some lore. I mean, thumbs up to I like the creativity. I can't wait. There should be a show about Dead by Daylight. Every single season should come out with a new type of killer. But I'm not a writer, but behavior, if you're looking for some ideas. Killer updates. But actually, before we touch this, my thoughts. The anti-slugging and the anti-tunneling is absolutely massive. And I understand that, there's two sides of the community that are going to be affected differently. There's going to be killers are like, oh, their powers are gone. Well, we will find new ways to do this. And it is going to, again, create this big gap between characters that you see quite often to characters we don't see. If they go through with the anti-tunnel or the anti-slug rules, I think Twins goes from top 5 to 10 killer. You could drop them all the way down. Like it's just there goes their power. Oni's going to get a little bit of a change. We're going to see certain add-ons coming in again. Shout out to Owning Stone for getting a weird trapper nerf. Artist gets nerf, etc., etc. So they kind of feel they're kind of getting gypped and kicked to the curb here. And survivors are poking fun, saying, "Well, you guys get your base kit barbecue. We need more killer aura." Aura gets outclassed by macro. I'm just going to put that out there. If you have good macro game, if you see Jen in front of you has lots of progress, there's no scratch marks, survivors are probably in the vicinity. If Jen across the map is, you don't see anybody on your side, again, it's just, I don't really agree with that, but like, it doesn't really feel like the balance, the scales have really tipped in the killer's favor for this one. So I give my nod to killers getting a nerf there, a hard nerf, which again, it's a problematic thing. So I get that. I don't feel like this is the proper way to do this. Our Myers getting Myers 3.0. And you thought that the old Myers or the second version of Myers just felt a little bit weird. Well, be prepared, as her behavior took the Halloween version of Myers and threw it in the garbage and created their very own shape. I've never seen these changes. I've never seen a movie with Michael Myers about to do what he's about to do. And as someone who really enjoyed a scratch mirror game here or there, once out of every 100 matches, I'm sad that we're losing a bit of identity here. Shape went for someone that you would stock up close. Most shapes, Michael Myers would stock up close, gain up their power that way. Now they reverted it to, you want to be in the distance. If you're up close, you don't have as many charges that you're gaining, etc., etc. Shape went from a D tier killer to a D tier killer. They had never really addressed sort of the core issues of it. Now, I was never a huge Myers lover to play because although I found Scratch Mirror Myers very enjoyable for a certain time, I always felt like some of the flexibility was very reliant on my survivors as opposed to some skill expression. You have currently, we have a few different types of builds in this current meta. You have an infinite Tombstone Mire. You've got a perma tier 3. You've got Tombstone Piece. You've got a regular Myers, Vanity Mirror Myers, Scratch Mirror Myers, and what I term as a Chad Michael Myers. That's my own build, where we're stacking obsessions and, you know, rotating through a couple of their add-ons to get really fast stocks. So he had some like work with it, but he never felt like he could be superb in one faction. He was like a jack of all trades, but master of none. He could do a little bit of everything. He could expose. He can remove survivors. The only one that felt like a big issue was Tombstone Piece, because you could have no interaction with the survivor, pick them up by the throat and throw them out of the game. That felt kind of weird. So I was excited to see the shape changes today. I thought probably could use some love until I saw what they were turning him into. So we are taking his stalking mechanic, and we're kind of adding to it where we're no longer tearing up. Essentially, shape, after going through all of this, it can be a little bit confusing with the different numbers here. It's talking about different speed changes and vaulting, increased to vaulting. Lo and behold, imagine Tombstone, or imagine a Myers that's dressed as a Chucky. That's what this is. They took Myers and made a perma, or not perma, but like an exposable Chucky that can slice and dice. Or what I termed earlier today is a ghost face pig hybrid, where the ghost face marks the survivor and then you dash along with the pig attack. Perfect example would be right here, where Michael Myers gets incensed at Dwight for hiding in lockers and decides to lunge with his ability to down him. I've never seen a Halloween movie that he sprints at the survivor full on. I would think would be probably funny, maybe more camp than I'm used to, but it's very out of pocket. And I just feel that they've completely removed his stalking sense, and they made him a dash killer, or is better known in the community as a dash slop style of killer. The community just voted against dash slop. That's what they did not want to see from our new killer. We're bringing in Myers, who is essentially that. There's one really good part. He's got some enduring. His power can now actively break pellets. So you can maybe say, instead of like the pig ghost face, it's also throwing the Demogorgon's shred attack. They're going to be changing a whole bunch of different add-ons as well to reflect these types of changes. And I really think that coming off of the Executioner update, I have hope. I honestly have hope in those changes, because they knocked that out of the park. There was a lot of flexibility, and there's theory crafting on different types of builds and add-ons that you could do. It just feels weird. That's the best way I can say. He just looks and feels weird, this Myers. Again, Myers has been known to shift around certain areas, and kind of be stalking behind you, and, you know, be that watchful eye before he's this powerhouse in front of you. An indestructible beast, now into a giant Chucky. I'm just expecting him to start, you know, swearing at the survivors as he's chasing after him. I don't agree with this. I don't think that this should be the case, and I'm just shocked that they went through this, because I'm just thinking from like the license holders is that you're changing the essence of it. If people play this game and they go back and watch the movies, they're like, bro, why isn't he running? Like in Dead by Daylight, he sprinted after survivors here. I don't think this change, I think it's just weird. I'm going to try it out. It looks kind of fun. Dash slop is always, you know, enjoyable from the killer's perspective, but I'm curious about this one. I just don't think it's going to be in a great place. And I'm just maybe just burnt out of dash killers. We've gotten so many over the past 2 years that I'm just shocked that we just got another upgrade for them. But essentially, we're going to find a lot more about his powers and the way he works through the PTB. Stalk from afar, get up closer, trigger your ability, just like Ghostface when you're about to do this swinging attack, and sprint at them like a madman. The slaughtering strike in action. Now, the clown change. Sorry, I just in utter disbelief at some of these changes coming through. Kind of give her a little thoughts, processes. If you made it to the video through this video so far, drop like a little skull and bones emote in in the comments after Michael Myers just got absolutely brutalized, or at least his character lore did. Now, we're moving on to the clown here. Clown just came out of a PTB release where we turned Clown from a mid-C tier killer into a minus B plus. Throw a bottle at your feet and don't even think about it. Just run at your Clown. In all honesty, the survivor community right now is in this type of meta with the amount of filler pellets in the game, and not looking at active like bigger loops like basic jungle gym, LNT, 4-lane, etc. You have these tiles you can work with in the match, which again is healthy for certain things. There's so many of them in this game mode that survivors just pre-drop the pellet, run to main, and don't look back. There's no sense of looping anymore. And Clown kicked their butt at it. Clown would just catch up immediately with it. Same way Ghoul is so hot right now is because Ghoul essentially kills that type of playstyle that survivors have been playing. It's an efficient, I do the same thing. So I'm not like saying it's a bad thing, but Clown coming into it felt like a problem because the old stuff that worked well against him no longer worked well. And the stuff that didn't work well actively works a little bit better. So they kind of flipped the script on Clown. He performed a little worse when you're playing something like Killer Shack and basic jungle gyms because the setup bottles where you would throw the yellow into your purple just didn't make sense. The activation times are all over the place. And the bigger issue is not the haste stacking as people made it out to be. It was the increased activation time of the tonic or the afterpiece antidote, the yellow bottles. It went from 2 seconds to 1 second. So by the time it hit the ground, just with the animation stutter that happens and the frames that happens, it would be almost instantaneous, near instantaneous. That was the problem. That was the problem I had with it, is that they just need to reduce that, maybe put some more into the purple bottle. And it looks like that's what we're going to be going for. They're increasing the activation time of the afterpiece antidote, likely back exactly to where it was or very similar to it. So survivors can adjust appropriately. You can get to your pellets a little bit more of ease instead of just being immediately on from the killer. As well as the afterpiece tonic hindrance effect lingers after leaving smoke. So it's just going to be there for a little bit longer. And I feel like they need to go back to sort of the old mechanics by just leaving faster reload, faster movement speed while reloading as well. and maybe tune down the purple bottles by 1%. That's the way I would have handled it. And I feel like he was manageable. Like personally, Clown, it would be a race to see who could grab your yellow bottle. If I had a Clown in front of me and there was a certain tile and it was a small enough tile, I would just start pathing, throw my pallet. And as soon as he goes to break, I would steal his yellow bottle. I'd be off in the distance into no man's land. We go have a little back and forth there, but again, it became a who can steal the yellow bottles. He just felt a little boring after a while. So I'm glad that this change is coming through. And it was a very hot topic created a couple of funny memes though. So this is actually a very good update for the Clown. And I think it's a step in the right direction. So I'm cool with it. The Unknown, I'm so excited for. Unknown has had an issue with survivors FOVing his UVX, and they would get up into your business, and it's made for some trick plays because he was very limited in his field of view. So the increased time to the weaken when injured by a UVX projectile. This is great news. Seems to be a little bit of extra time for the Unknown to work with. Maybe you don't get your first shot, you can still maybe set yourself up for a follow-up, because if you missed one time as the Unknown, any type of good survivor would keep their eyes on you and they would remove it. So it was very, very punishing. And I think that if they relax a little bit of this, we're going to see less of an Unknown who M2 fakes and tries to zone you, and more of a skill expressive one that can still be punished by misses, but it's going to take a little bit more accuracy. Blurry Photo may have been further base kit. I'm not a huge Unknown player. I played him a little bit. So I think that's what they're looking at doing, is that they're making his speed a little bit better here. Increased camera vertical range. Again, if a survivor is trying to FOV, there's almost nothing you can do. You can step back, but again, it just creates this weird pocket of distance for the survivor to do this. So I'm glad that they made these vertical changes. This is going to really help out a lot of Unknowns. And I'm so excited for the Unknown community to post all of their clips. I can't wait. I love seeing skill expression. I love seeing those cool trick shots. Add-ons are being also affected. This was something that I saw on Twitter like a month ago, and they're bringing it up here from the animatronic, and that's sort of what people were making things saying. The animatronic going for those orbitals were punishing, but felt really cool to play. So they're bringing that in, and there's a blurry photo, so we were correct. So I'm glad that they're doing this. We've seen for how animatronic feels to play, how funny he is to play. He's not necessarily the strongest character, and they're kind of copying this recipe of success for the Unknown. So that's kudos to Behavior for doing this. I'm really enjoying this. I'm hoping to see the Unknown move from like a B tier killer to maybe high B, maybe A minus, depending on how well this verticality works. Because his problem still is like if Survivor's on top of his husks, or you know, those little clone things that he leaves. So I think he'll always be there until they can pressure this, but this allows for them to maybe place a little bit more husks around, because, you know, that's part of their powers. The more people that have the weakened status effect, the more husks you can play. So really excited about this change. Dark Lord, top 5 killer. His vampire form has always been good, punishing, but his bread and butter was the wolf. We are seeing a slightly reduced Hellfire cooldown, increase to the total Hellfire pillars by 1. So buffs there. Always like seeing more M2 shots. Let's see more skill expression. The reduced Hellfire charge movement speed. Think of it like a huntress pulling up their hatchet. That's going to be a little bit more time to charge. So a little bit less instantaneous, and you offset this by slightly reducing the Hellfire cooldown and etc. Just adding 1 more pillar fire. Slightly increased slowdown time after casting Hellfire. So coming in and out of your power. Again, this is good. This is what you kind of want from a killer, and sort of the tune-ups and tune-downs is that you buff one side, you make one side stronger, and then you slowly nerf the other side. Whereas Wolf is actually just getting a complete nerf. Again, we don't really have the figures here, so we don't really know how effective this is going to be. The increased pounce attack charge time, as well as the increased scent orb spawn times, just means that you know, leaving 2 scent orbs with, you know, a couple of their add-ons doesn't mean you can repounce back into it. So I think having your vampire form go up, your wolf form go down, and your bat form's actually going up because they increase sort of the movement friction and sort of mobility of that bat form, making it a little bit easier to control. We're gonna have to see where this is. I think this is just good for Dark Lord, but the head scratcher is we still have Dark Lord bugs that are just really hampering this killer. So again, it's a bit of a head scratcher. If they go and patch the bug out and then they implement this, there's going to be more bugs for the killer. And this, again, this kind of is like this is kind of the theme of this update. Again, this sentence right here. Vampire form is slightly less oppressive in short loops where movement slowdown had less of an impact. That's like the movement slowdown is true, but he was still very effective at short loops. Just people preferred the wolf because it was strong and was accurate and it was easy to get back in your power. But what you saw from, you know, highly competitive players is that they would be able to flip between different transformations to use all 3 powers at once. You know, wolf pounce, miss your pounce right into a hellfire, you know, bat form right into your wolf. Like that was sort of the strength of this killer. I never felt vampire form was not oppressive. I just felt like you needed some accuracy, and that's going to be helpful here. And again, just making sort of one side more reliable, and he's a little bit slower too. So I think Survivor's going to enjoy playing around this a little bit more for those Survivors who do enjoy those M2 only style of killers. Ghoulia gets hurt here after the whole debacle about Ghoul being way too oppressive and nobody liking the kidnap tech, and Behavior got on the forums and typed madly that this is part of their kit. We're now seeing it removed, or at least adjusted. I'm grabbing a Survivor on the other side of a vault with Gagune Leap. The Survivor is released at the start of the Ghoul's vault instead of at the end. It's good. Good job. So I always believed that Ghoul was fine to a certain degree. I felt like he could cheese some aspects. Never liked the hit scan. Still don't like the hit scan, but I always appreciated a Ghoul who learned how to slide cancel, as opposed to those that just relied on the kidnap tech. It was strong, it was effective, but there's still a show of strength for the Ghoul. I think it comes down to skill expression here, where the skill floor has been raised, meaning that it's going to take a little bit extra time for you to get adjusted to it, and it's not going to be a simple plug and play character, while the skill ceiling just remains untouched. Really, this was just a little bit of flexibility that I think top tier Ghouls will not be affected by, where bottom tier, not bottom tier, but like learning Ghouls, they're going to have to practice a little bit more. I still think Ghoul is a top 5 killer. That doesn't remain untouched. He's going to require a little bit more practice. And honestly, Ghoul folks, our Ghoul fans, our Ghoul mains, go check out a couple of those Ghoul streamers. There's a couple how-to guides, and learn how to slide cancel. It's using your leaps to slide into place for pallets and windows to block off certain tiles. It is so fun. It is so rewarding. It is so refreshing. We also are coming up to the Oni change. So as we mentioned, Oni will be affected by the anti-slugging mechanics that are being brought in, and it looks like they are offsetting with adding some more blood orbs once you hook a survivor. Because again, that's really hampering his ability. But again, Oni's strength comes from multi-downs with high mobility through his power. We'll have to see how the blood orbs really come to effect. This is just one of those things that we have to sit and wait. It's hard to give an understanding until you got a couple matches to see how it's going to feel, especially with the barbecue, which is really going to help Onis here. It'll be interesting to see. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to completely change the kit for him. Onis are, again, their powers rely on a little bit of slugging. You take that away, we're going to have to see an adjustment period. And I think that, again, a really good Oni is still going to be really good Oni. But you're just not going to see sort of that four person clap that, we became accustomed to see it. Pretty much all that there is in this update. Our final closing thoughts on all of this. I'm a little unnerved, not with necessarily the changes to the anti-slug, the anti-tunnel, some of the killer changes. I just personally wanted to see behavior fix their bugs. I wasn't expecting this, with them saying that they were going to be continuing their health update extraordinaire that we saw in January for about a week. They've implemented two new mechanics, a full-on rework, and a number of different changes to killers. And when you change that much in the formula, and what we've seen from just a simple killer getting added, how much it breaks the game, I would have loved to see them address a whole number of different killers. Killers having some game-breaking bugs that completely hamper them for the rest of the game. Shout out to our Huntress mains out there with their invisible hatchets. It's been around, feels like almost in inception, but it's been terrible since the last year. That should have been a priority. Then reworking Michael Myers with just a dash slop style of play. I would have loved if they just said, you know what, this is what we're looking at changing. These are the different styles of killers we're going to be working on this month, and this is what we're going to come with you. Obviously, they're going to have to touch up. I would have loved, go ahead with the clown, go ahead with the Ghoul changes. I'm for that. I do think that the anti-slugging and anti-tunneling, it's promoting different play styles, which again, I can understand the theory of it. I'm with you on that. It sucks when I'm playing Survivor and it happens. But honestly, I love the challenge. I don't mind getting tunneled. If you ever see me in your lobby, go ahead and go for that. If I lose all 3 of my chases, you get the hat. It might have been a bad game for me. Might have been skill expression. It's on me to get better. It's not for me to get assistance to get this. I think one of the fair points is that at the end of the day, this is a competitive multiplayer game with the introduction of, behavior getting behind DBD League, but they are reverting themselves back to a fun, casual game mode. I don't want this to turn into 2 versus 8, just the 1v4 version. I much prefer having sort of the public lobbies that's semi-competitive, or just give us ranked. Just give us ranked and keep all these changes out of this. Keep this like the custom matches so you can turn it off. There you have it, folks. If you stayed around until the end of here, drop a subscribe. It really does help the channel. Drop a heart emoji in the comments. Do all that lovely stuff. I do stream Monday through Fridays from morning, afternoon, sometimes to evening. I host some tournaments. I cast in tournaments. Sometimes I play in tournaments. But I appreciate you all. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your evening. And again, let me know what change in here just really kind of drives a point home for you. What do you feel about these updates? Do you feel it's more survivor sided or killer sided? Anyways, we'll catch you in the next one.